Welcome to the Dynasty DNA Deep Dive on the Dynasty DNA Podcasting Network, where we talk players, teams, everything Dynasty Fantasy Football, and everything NFL. So listen in with us and let's talk some Dynasty Fantasy Football. And here's your host, TJ Blake.
Welcome back, DNA Strand crew, to the newest episode of the Dynasty DNA Deep Dive here on the Dynasty DNA Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, TJ Blake. You can follow me over on X at FFTJBlakeDNA. And as always, for the Dynasty DNA Deep Dive, we're joined by the one that they call Big Culture. And, you know, just for all the fans out there, a Panic at the Disco fan as well. We just found that out pre-show. Big Culture Bob Helfert. You can follow him over on X at Big E Fat Bob. Bob, even Little Culture here was a little bit just like, wow, surprised by your music selection tonight.
Little Culture should know I listen to a whole lot of things. Matter of fact, we had a conversation one night about what would my walkout song be, and I'm like, the remix to Ignition? Are you kidding me? Like, of course. Yeah, I don't know. It's like that. People are like, yeah, like why not? Bob knows that song forward and backwards. It's older than Logan is, so sure.
That's it. You know, Big Culture, he listens to it all, right? That's what he told you. He loves it when they call him Big Culture, right? A little Biggie there for you as well. But we're also joined by Little Culture, Logan Helfert, back with us here today. You can follow him over on X at Logan123003. Logan, happy to have you back. Are you ready to talk about the AFC East?
Oh, I'm ready. I've been ready to talk football. It was a long 2 weeks of no football conversation and no phones. So I'm happy to be back, ready to rock and roll, trying to catch back up on all the news. And, well, you know, since he already announced his walkout song is going to be the remix to Ignition, I'm going to jump in here with Remember the Name by Fort Minor is going to be my walkout song.
Good choice.
Absolute banger.
Good choice.
Front to back.
I agree. That's a good choice, no doubt about it. But let me just say, guys, it's been a winding road. These division breakdowns, they're coming to an end here today. We're going to be doing the AFC East. I'm going to tell you, half this division lives up to the billing. Maybe the other half is the AFC least. But we're going to get to talking about maybe the half of the AFC least right now, Bob. A couple teams that you like to pick on. We're going to start at the bottom of the barrel with your favorite head coach, Aaron Glenn, of the New York Football Jets. Bob, last year was a rough year for the Jets. I don't even think they registered an interception. I don't know if that's ever been accomplished in the history of the NFL, and the Jets did manage to pull that off. And they had a Hall of Fame caliber potential corner as their head coach in Aaron Glenn, and they could not get an interception, oddly enough. But let's just go ahead and start talking about the offensive line here for Gang Green. How are the Jets looking up front, Bob? Is there any good news as far as that goes for the Jets?
Well, just one brief thing. I think they had 4 turnovers all year, if that tells you how crappy the defense was. Okay, so Olu Fashanu, Dylan Parham, probably the weak link, Josh Myers at center, Joe Tippmann, and Armand Mimbo. If you guys remember, I said that the Patriots should have drafted Mimbo instead of Will Campbell in that draft, and he's turned out to be a stud. So one in the hat for culture. You know, the Jets, they're ranked 17th on this FTN article, which is actually, you know, middle of the packish, which I'm not too shocked by. And honestly, I do like Fashanu and I do like Mimbo. Tippmann's serviceable to say the least. I think this is the unit that's the best unit of the whole team, to be honest with you, because like I'm not super excited about many of the weapons past a couple of players. I'm definitely not excited about the quarterback room. The defense, again, we just talked about how, man, we're going to get into that. So yeah, I think this is probably the best unit in the whole organization.
Have to agree, Bob. Oddly enough, when you were going to be done speaking, that's what I was going to say. If you look at this Jets team, if you had to put your hat on one thing being the best that they have, it is the offensive line. I'm in agreement with you. So it ain't all doom and gloom for the Jets. They just can't get out of their own way, right? They always seem to get in their own way, but at least structurally they're building this thing up right as far as that goes, right? They have the offensive line with a couple younger players that can maybe be cornerstones here for them. So that's got to be going for the Jets just a little bit, a good thing, right? Give them one little prop. Logan, we just talked about the defense here of the New York Jets. It is bad, right? And we've talked about low turnover rate, really nothing going on, no interceptions. Did they do anything this offseason to help improve that, or is this going to be a unit that maybe we could still look at as being a little homely when it comes to stopping fantasy football play?
They're not going to be able to stop much, but I definitely think they did get quite a bit better. A lot of them are names that are getting past their prime, so I'll say that. But then they did bring in some decent guys like Tavondre Sweat, who's a pretty good nose tackle. Joseph Osai, who I have his signed jersey back there, who's an absolute shitter. Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's past his prime, I think, personally. D'Angelo Pons, who's a solid nickelback who played for Indiana last year. It's getting better, and I think they might be able to pull in a turnover or two. They did bring in David Bailey as well to apply pressure to the quarterback, but I don't think we should be scared of them just yet.
Right, I agree. And so at least they added some young talent. We'll see how far it goes. And to be honest, look, they absolutely gutted this thing when they traded Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner, right? I mean, like, when that happened last year, they completely gutted it, right? So yeah, we'll see. But, I mean, at least they draft some more young guys. Like you said, an edge. They're bringing in some help there. They desperately need to get after the quarterback. I mean, I think that's where the interception problem starts, right? You got to get after the quarterback, at least get him under pressure some. That helps the secondary, right? But all right, let's just get into the nuts and bolts of this team on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think we got to go into like loads and loads of scholarly information here when it comes to the New York Jets offense right now. But Bob, it is Geno Smith coming in from the Las Vegas Raiders, right? He's coming over, has played with the Jets in the past. That's the team that drafted him. Kind of coming full circle here for Geno. But, we look at the Raiders, Geno, it wasn't good, but Seattle Geno at times could be serviceable, right? Like we've seen right around that quarterback 14 to 18, he could pull that off with the Seahawks. But, we really haven't seen nothing too special once he went to the Raiders. So do you think that was more of a maybe scheme problem, or do you think maybe Geno's just kind of had any kind of luck dry up that was on his side when he's with the Seattle Seahawks?
Well, 35-year-old Geno Smith on this team is probably the problem, right? I mean, and this problem's going to get solved in the next draft, in my opinion. However, he should be somewhere between, because, like, how much did I rail on the Raiders' offensive line last year? It was awful. Poor Genty and Geno got sent to the Wolves or whatever. And, I mean, it just is what it is there. So, Geno Smith was behind a terrible offensive line last year. This is a huge upgrade. And, of course, his Seattle days were much better than his Vegas days. So, maybe I think we're going to be somewhere in between. I have zero Geno Smith, and quite frankly, I think I'll have zero Geno Smith throughout the year. I don't care if he's quasi-lighting up the scoreboard. I think I'd just rather roll the dice with somebody else.
Agreed, right? Because, look, I just wanted to bring this up, and I think that, like you said, it's going to be a little bit better than the Raiders, I think a little bit better, but I don't think it's going to be light years better, right? This division is tough, but it isn't as tough as the AFC West was. I mean, look, the Patriots and the Bills are a couple good football teams. We know that, but it wasn't like you're going up against the Chiefs and the Broncos and the Chargers, who were at least always middle of the pack, right? Like, this is going to be a little bit of a lighter load when it comes to the division strength, right, overall. So that might help Geno out. But I'm like you, Bob. I'm not going out and looking at him in any kind of move for my dynasty roster. I wouldn't even trade a third for him, right? Like, you're not, I mean, you're best you might get a half a season or a season here. They're going to be moving on, going a different direction at the quarterback spot for sure at some point here, either the draft or via free agency or trade next year. We know they have all them first-round picks. They could do a variety of things. But I will say, if he was on the waiver wire or something, right, that could just be like, hey, if I add him for a couple games, like Kirk Cousins, right, I will add them guys if they're on the wire just because you could get a couple games out of them. But, Logan, we're talking Geno Smith. Me and Big Culture here are saying, look, looking at the situation, it could be a little bit better than what we've seen with the Raiders, but we're not expecting light years better. Are you in agreement, right? Like, if he's on the waiver wire, you have him rostered, you're at least happy it could be a tad better, but you're not pursuing him in any form, are you?
Yeah, I'm not going for him. If I'm going for anyone in this quarterback room, I would try and trade some, like, handcuff running back for Cade Klubnik. I don't think Geno's going to be a starter for long. on this team. At some point in this season or next season, Cade Klubnik's going to get a start.
Agreed.
And I think it will be this season. I think Geno is not where he was in Seattle, and I think they're expecting Seattle production out of him. And then they're going to be like, well, we got this rookie. Let's see what he can do. Clemson product, might as well see what he's got. We see the last Clemson quarterback that's been notable. Trevor Lawrence is killing it, but
I just can't believe that we're questioning the genius of Aaron Glenn. In all honesty, in case of an emergency, like maybe I would do, and it'd have to be some catastrophic. Nobody's giving me anything but the last place teams. Like, I got Geno for a third. Yeah, but that I'd have to have my top 3 quarterbacks hurt before I even considered, and that would be a abysmal situation.
No, for sure. I mean, look, I like what Logan said, right? Like Cade Klubnik, and Bob, we talk about this, right? Like, I don't expect much from Cade Klubnik, let's be honest, especially on the Jets, right? Like, I don't expect much from Cade Klubnik to begin with, but on the Jets, you really don't expect much. But look, if you draft him in the 5th round or something in your dynasty rookie draft, or if he's sitting on waivers and you have taxi space available, why not add him, right? Because he's probably going to get a look, because the Jets have the luxury of saying, hey, look at it like this. We don't want to win. We don't have to win, and if Geno looks average or below average, we don't have to play him, right? So they could throw in Cade Klubnik at any time just to see what they have in. Maybe if it goes bad, they'll let it ride out to the end of the year and hope to get the worst record they could get, right, and get a higher draft pick. So I agree with that. But let's go over and talk about Teixeira's Man Crush Monday here. Breece Hall going to re-sign with the Jets. Bob hates this. Right, these players re-signing with these teams. He re-ups with the Jets, Logan. We know he's not trapped there anymore. He's there willingly for the money. But looking at it of the standpoint of this passing game has a lot to be desired. We talk about the quarterback problems. I mean, is this going to be a Breece Hall year, or do you think that the Braylon Allens, the Isaiah Davises of the world are going to cause him enough trouble to maybe still slow that down a little bit? What's your thoughts, Logan?
So I think they're going to try and give the workload to Breece Hall. But I'll tell you right now, they're going to pass a lot. Even if Geno can't get it out there, I think their number one priority is going to be trying to pass with the wide receivers they have. But I know we'll get into the wide receiver talk eventually. But I think it's going to be the Breece Hall show in the running back room. I can see Braylon Allen taking snaps like a 75-25 between Hall and Allen. I really don't think Davis is going to be as much of a factor as we kind of expect.
Right. And, there was a lot of people banging the drum of Isaiah Davis last year, Braylon Allen. Like, we heard that a lot. It was just a lot of smoke, right? Like, I mean, if you have Breece Hall, you might want to have these guys for handcuff situations, whatever. But, I mean, look, if it ain't Breece Hall behind this line and with this team, I'm super not interested, right? I'm just not no. Breece Hall's special. He's capable of being special, right? Like Isaiah Davis is 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Braylon Allen's like 2 yards in a cloud of dust, right? I mean, it just is what it is. Them guys ain't elusive. They ain't special. I mean, if I had roster space, sure, I'll handcuff, do whatever I have to do, but that's all I'm doing. But, Bob, look, there's been a lot of people, right? The old question, this 2027 draft's coming up. It's loaded. A lot of good prospects. It's a draft you like, we all talk about it. If you were in a contending situation, and I know you don't like buying running backs, say you could just get Breece Hall for that single first. Is that a gamble you think would be worthwhile, or would you rather maybe up the ante and do something else, or just look in another direction if you're hunting for running back help? Or do you think that he could be a good return on investment this year?
I don't know if this is the time to get into a rant or not, but what I don't understand, okay, number one, let's just talk about the contract situation. The dude was in a cage, right? He's in a cage. He's locked in a cage. It's like, hey, here's the key. We'll give you the key, but you got to accept this big bag of money and stay really close to the cage in case we got to throw you back in there again. Well, I don't understand why you don't escape the asylum. That's number one. And then number two, like Logan, I think is on to something, but like, what's the passing game from Geno Smith going to be? Like, this team this team is going to be probably behind a lot. I don't know that the defense has improved enough or whatever to keep them from being in shootouts. So then, like, is Geno Smith just going to be a check down artist, or, you know, to have Breece Hall have value, or are they just going to keep chucking it to Adonai Mitchell so he can drop the ball at the goal line, or are they going to keep hammering Garrett Wilson until he gets a YOLO ball that gets him hurt again? I mean, and then you're trusting Omar Cooper, and I mean, obviously they invested in Sadiq and Taylor in the last 2 drafts. I don't understand what this team's vision is. Like, you know, we're going to get into 2 teams in this division that are going to be talked about a lot on the Culture Shock because they're going to be 2 of the worst teams probably in the NFL. I just don't understand. And to come back to your question, what am I hoping for if I pay a first, TJ? Am I hoping that they get in shootouts all the time and he's the check down guy? Or am I hoping that on first and second down he breaks one every now and again? I'd rather shop at a different store. I do like the player, and I have him in a couple places. I bought last year thinking that it was going to be the year. And, of course, what happens? You know, I thought that he would go out there gangbusters on his contract so he could earn a job someplace else. What does he do? He exchanges the key for the bag of money and stays in jail.
Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. And Bob says he's not shopping at that store for a first. And it goes back to the culture thing for you, right? I mean, like, that's what we've always talked about. And that it doesn't change with the Jets. It just doesn't change. But, Bob, you're right. Like, why are they drafting these skill players whenever you have no need to have them right now? Like you should be focused on losing. There isn't anyone there that was that mega talented out of this draft anyway. I agree with you. Stupid move. But it is the New York Jets. We talk about that a lot. But, Logan, I think you wanted to add something here before we move on to some Garrett Wilson talk.
Yeah, my big thing is, are we excited about a Frank Reich ran offense?
Nope.
Like, at the end of the day, are we excited about that? Like,
I mean, we double. I got an idea. Let's be a really bad team. I'm going to double down on that. Let's hire Frank Reich. Oh, I'm like, okay, you know, let's have a crappy defense. We got a defensive head coach that can't produce an interception for a whole season, and like. Wiz was hammering about how they should just fired him after last year. I'm not saying he's going to be a good coach, but eventually you got to set a path, and it doesn't look like they're ever going to do it. When are they going to set a path?
For sure. I agree with you on that, and it was a very good point on Logan's part, too, because what's New York? What's in the water? You get Matt Nagy and Frank Reich, right? That's what you're bringing in, baby. And I'm going to tell you right now, it ain't going to be good for the Giants or the Jets because, I mean, that is a disaster. These guys have proven that they cannot really overload and run good offenses in the league. We've seen that a lot. So, all right, let's go over now to Garrett Wilson here, Bob. I know this is another player you're frustrated with for taking the money and staying with the Jets. I know you're a fan of the talent, but look, I mean, there's always going to be this portion of people out there that are going to be super into Garrett Wilson. Like, and I can see why. The talent is attractive. Right, we know what he can be capable of, but is he someone in your mind that, like, if you get, like, I mean, I know you with any player, but, like, I know you like wide receivers especially. If someone come to you and offered you a fair offer or more than a fair offer for Garrett Wilson, are you going to try to get out of this situation because of where we're at with the Jets? Like, do you think he's always just going to be limited right now to where he's at right now, like, is where the Jets' play is?
I mean, for the most part, it's going to be where he's at on my lineup. Because, like, if I'm counting on him to be a 2, oh, shit, he's gone. You know, like, I can't count on that, right? In all honesty, it just depends on where he's at on my team. If I'm in a rebuild, heavy rebuild situation where I may have one decent wide receiver in Garrett Wilson, then I'm probably taking the fair offer. But if I have, you know, a surplus and I'm competitive and depending on what if I got steady guys at the top and Garrett Wilson's my, like, lightning bolt, then I might just stick with it.
Interesting. And, that's a very good point, Bob. And that's just so many people want him to be that one, right? It's just like the Jets will always bring him down to where he won't be, But, Logan, what's your thoughts on Garrett Wilson when you approach, like, dynasty startup drafts, right? Or really any startup draft in general? Looking at him year to year, is this a guy that, you look at it and you're like, man, I like the player, but I just can't do it with this Jets team. Is he more of a pass for you in a lot of startups?
Yeah, honestly, at this point, if I'm going to be taking any Jets wide receiver, I got to say it's going to be Omar Cooper, but it's because he's a later value, and I think he's got better talent for the value he's at. Garrett Wilson's amazing, but I've seen him go as early as the second round, and I don't think that's good value for me in the Jets offense.
My rebuttal to this, Logan, and I know he's an Indiana player, so that he's got a soft spot in your heart. That's why I said Homer. But, like, are you counting on the Jets to actually, like, build up a wide receiver? Like, Garrett Wilson came to the league talented. Omar Cooper has come into the league as a wild card that needs to develop. And you're going to count on the Jets to develop him.
I'm not saying I'm counting on the Jets to develop him, but I think he can do enough little bits here and there that when he has the ability to get out, he's going to get out. Unlike Garrett Wilson, who decided, you know what, I'm gonna have the chance to break these handcuffs, and I'm going to just get right back in them.
I don't believe it. I think almost all the league's full of suckers that just as soon as the dollar signs come up and the team that's got them wants to pay them, they just stay. Like, it doesn't matter how like.
It's like Rashee Rice. He's like, oh, I got probation. I'm out of these handcuffs. Oh, I'm going to go do some dumb shit. So
Rashee Rice is in legit jail.
That's my point.
Well, let me just say though, right? I mean, looking at it from the standpoint of Garrett Wilson, I just want to see. My thoughts are later on. Like, it's going to be a bad year again this year. It just is. Like, I'm not saying Geno can't elevate him a little bit if we see a little bit of the old Geno, but I mean, how much is it really going to elevate him, right? And then he's got to stay healthy too on top of that. So it's a lot of more. Like, you look at it on a scale, right? It's leaning more on the scale of what could go wrong over what could go right for Garrett Wilson in 2026. I mean, I look at it like if you want to buy them or move in on them, gamble this offseason before the draft and they get a quarterback, right? I mean, you're still taking a chance because it's the New York Jets, but if you gamble on them then before the hype of them getting a quarterback really starts to build, you could probably still get them for a pretty darn cheap price, and I don't mind that. But, all right, Bob, this is just a simple question I want to ask you here before we close out the Jets. Kenyon Sadiq or Mason Taylor? What's your thoughts on this tight end room? I mean, do you think that there's any role for Mason Taylor? Is he just completely dust now? And what do you think about Kenyon Sadiq adding to that room? Are you not ultra thrilled with both players? Where are you at?
So Mason Taylor is a absolute catch and fall down guy. I don't think that they can get away from him completely because they invested too much. Now, is it going to be worth anything on our dynasty rosters? No. Kenyon Sadiq, I didn't really care for Sadiq. He's super athletic, but in all honesty, he's not. I don't think he's as good as the tight end that's coming out next year for Oregon. So I'm not a big fan. I mean, he runs fast and gets under the ball. That could work out, but we're talking about the Jets, Jets. You know, they're not. It's not going to work out. I don't want to trust any tight end on this team.
For sure. I mean, I feel the same way. Like, Sadiq's kind of like the lesser version of Kyle Pitts even, right? Like what is he? Is he a big slot? Is he a tight end? I mean, what is he? And then you go to the Jets, which is like even worse than Atlanta where Kyle Pitts is at, right? So, like, it just is like even worse from that scenario. But all right, Logan, you know, Big Culture says, look, he don't like either of these tight ends, and I have to agree with them, but Kenyon Sadiq, Mason Taylor, is there room for any of these guys in your eyes to grow, or is these guys you're going to pass on as well?
I hate tight ends coming out of the draft, and it's nothing against the tight ends themselves. I've been burnt twice in a row. That's what I'll say. I'll actually go into that a little bit more. Last year I had Cole Kmet, and the Bears draft Colson Loveland. This year I had Mason Taylor, and the Jets draft Kenyon Sadiq. So why can't I just get a tight end that will stay and be a starter? I can't get it. But
are you trying to like snatch a tight end out of the air there?
There was a bug. I saw a gnat and I was about to get it. But I'm not trusting either one of these tight ends right now. I think it's going to be a 50-50 or 75-25, and I really don't know who the 75 or the 25 is going to be.
For sure. I mean, there's going to be no one knocking on your door for Mason Taylor. I guess if you have him rostered, you can always hope, right? Just hold on to him for a year, see what happens. If Sadiq were to go down or something and he ups his value a little bit, then you could try to trade him off for anything you could get. But I look at Sadiq, right? Like, to me, he's a must sell. Like, I'm trying to sell. Like, if I was forced into drafting him, or if I have him via a startup or an orphan or anything like that, I'm trying to move him right away. I just am. Like, I mean, he's someone I don't want on my roster. It's volatile. And you look at the New York Jets, Bob. We talk about this one last thing. Every team in the league has a calling card at positions, right? Like, this team developed these positions better. This team could develop these positions better. When was the last time the New York Jets really had an effective tight end, right? I think Dustin Keller might have had a good year or two, but they are a team that are not notoriously good at bringing up and developing tight ends either in drafting them. So must sell for me, Kenyon Sadiq. He's someone I definitely have no interest in rostering at this point. But here we go, Bob. The fun part for you, the New York Jet overall record, division finish, playoffs for the New York Jets. Where are you at when it comes to the Jets in 2026?
No playoffs. No, I'm just kidding. They won't lose every game. I think that they end up ahead of Miami because if Miami doesn't get the number one pick, they absolutely failed. But I'm going to go with 4 wins, if that tells you how good I think Miami's going to be. So third in the division, 4 wins. What's that? 4 and 13. Yeah. And I think that Aaron Glenn gets fired sometime at the end of the back end of the season, and you'll see Cade Klubnik for Geno Smith, and it won't matter because they'll both get drafted over next year.
All right. And top 5 draft pick. Am I right, Bob?
Yeah, good job, Colts.
They might have 2 top 5 draft picks, right? It's a possibility. It could happen.
I think 2 top 10 for sure, but I think the Colts will be just a smidge better than the top 5. We've had the top 5 conversation.
I agree. 2 top 10s I think is very, very likely for the Jets. All right, Logan. Big Culture says 4 wins. Are they doing any better, any worse in your eyes? How does the season play out for Jets?
I think they're still at 4 wins, 3rd place in the division. But I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think them and the Dolphins are tied, but they have the tiebreaker, so they're higher on the standings.
All right. Yeah, it could be a split down there. That's for sure. But all right, so I'm going to say 5 wins for the Jets. Ever the optimist. Yep, absolutely, positively. 5 wins for the Jets, 5-12, and they're going to be 3rd in the division. So I think a little bit of improvement, like we talked on defense, and the offensive line's at least stout, right? But all right, Bob, we're going to get into the team, Logan, that he can't wait to talk about. You know that he loves some Miami Dolphins talk right now. You know, this might be the shortest breakdown out of all the teams we've done because there isn't really much to talk about, right? I mean, let's just be honest. But we'll start with the offensive line, Bob. Is there any hope of anything up front for the Miami Dolphins, or is it pretty desolate?
In all honesty, I think this may be very similar to the Jets. However, they're 10 spots worse than the Jets. This may be the best room in their whole team, and it's still very low. It's the 27th best offensive line. They got Patrick Paul that they drafted, I believe, last year or the year before at left tackle, and he's done a pretty good job. They drafted Caden Proctor this year. Aaron Brewer, the center, got a big extension in the offseason. I cannot remember how to pronounce Sevenaya. I don't have a clue, obviously he's Samoan. And then Austin Jackson, who I didn't realize last year I talked about. I didn't even realize who Austin Jackson was, but he's done an admirable job as their right tackle. But whatever, it's still a work in progress. But this is probably the best room Miami has, which says that they're 27th ranked about the rest of their team.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. And, you know, that's pretty bad whenever you're ranked that low, and that's the glowing spot, right, especially on offense. But at least they have a little bit of something to work with, right? We see some teams have nothing, like no premier potentially guys that could be at least solid good tackles in the league or anything. least the Dolphins have that going for them, I guess you could say a little bit. As you said, Austin Jackson's at least serviceable, right? I mean, I know that much. So we'll see. But all right, Logan, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins defense, right? This is a unit much maligned. How do you think that they're going to fare? Is this going to be an automatic play for a lot of our fantasy teams this year as well, or do you think they get a little bit better?
I think it's going to be an easy start. I mean, some of these guys just aren't 100% like how they used to be. They brought in Josh Uche from Philly, bringing in Chris Johnson, left cornerback, out of San Diego State, bringing Lonnie Johnson Jr. out of Vegas, but they still got Jordan Brooks, Tyrell Dodson, and then they brought in Zach Zeiler. I think the brightest spot on this defense is some of the rookies they drafted that they, at least our lads has them playing on the second team, and Jacob Rodriguez is the big name that I see.
Don't hesitate. Jordan Brooks is a stud. He's a stud. Now, you can't have a good defense with one player, but he's the guy.
Right.
There's solid names on this team, but I don't think it's going to be worth it.
Nothing that's going to scare you right now. Absolutely. Yeah, no. As far as, full throttle start your fantasy players against this defense, I agree. It's going to be one of the lower ones in football yet again. But, Bob, let's talk about Malik Willis, right? Because he does get that, 3-year deal, I believe, from Miami here this past offseason to come in and at least start this season. What's your take on Malik Willis? Can he survive this year? Because that's the biggest question, right? Like, you and I have gone back and forth on this. I think that they get like an Arch Manning or someone of that ilk if they're available near the top of the draft. You think maybe he's going to get a little bit more time? And, hey, will he even survive? Let's be honest. I mean, they didn't get a lot of help on this team, to be fair. So do you think Malik Willis is still an okay option this year? And do you think that he gets through? And how long do you think he has the reins here starting for the Dolphins?
I think that if Malik Willis stays healthy, he gets to start all this year and next year. And they'll worry about if he's absolutely terrible next, after that, just because they gave him money. You put Patrick Mahomes on this team, and I still think they're a dog team. This team is bad. You can't get appropriate judgment of how good Malik Willis is by these weapons. Like literally Jalen Tolbert, Tutu Atwell. I know you got a heartthrob thing a little bit for Malik Washington, and then after that you got a whole bunch of rookies, and one of the guys that they drafted I really like, but he's coming off of a serious injury. We'll get into that later. But I think Malik Willis, as far as I know, and I'm probably going to be misquoting the stat or whatever, but every quarterback since forever that's had over 700 yards rushing ends up being a QB1. I wouldn't be surprised if Malik Willis doesn't run for 1,000 yards. What is he going to do? There's not really anything to throw to. They've only got Devon Achane. It wouldn't surprise me if he's scrambling for his life all year. It may be like a Navy wishbone offense. I mean, who knows, right? And I feel like wishbone's not the word I'm looking for, but you know what I'm talking about, like the split T or whatever. It's whatever, that gimmicky offense where everybody just runs right or runs left. But I think that they got to give him a leash, because what's the sense in paying him all that money if you don't give him at least a fair shake? And again, I don't care what court you could drop prime Peyton Manning on this team and he would suck.
For sure. And to be fair, I like the point of, like, he's going to rush a lot because he has to, right? Like that's the thing. I think what it comes down to for me is we know that the Miami Dolphins are a team that are very impatient. They've proven that. That's why they put themselves in the hole they've been in for so long, right? They don't give people a lot of time. And how many games can he win? And that's really what it comes down to, right? And it really is the fact of, like, I can see what you're saying too. And if they're smart, they paid Malik Willis. So even next year, if you do draft a quarterback, give him another year, let the kid sit, right? I think that would be the wisest thing, especially with no weapons. But for a quarterback 3, I will say, Bob, you're on to something with the rushing, because, and they're going to be down a lot of points too. I mean, they just are. He's going to have to go full throttle. You look at Jacoby Brissett last year, right? Proof's in the pudding. See what happened with Arizona. right? Like they were down so much that they were throwing. And then you add the fact, like you said, Malik with his legs can do a little bit of something. Like this could be a good ad for a quarterback 3 just based off of what you could get in the short term. We'll see. I don't think he's going to be someone that's going to be around super, super long as a long-term starting option. But if you have him, I think as a quarterback 3 this year, I'd feel pretty good about that. So that's a good point, Bob. I like that. But Logan, Big Culture says, looking at Malik Willis, he could see him do a lot of running. They probably will be down a lot of points. Do you like him as a quarterback 3 option, and do you think that he has a chance to go more than this year as a starter? Where are you at on Malik Willis?
I think he finishes out this year and next year. I'm pretty sure that's whenever they can cut him and not owe him a whole lot of money. So that will probably what they do because they already have to pay Tua all that money. So I don't think they want to do that twice. My biggest complaint is if I were them and I was going full tank mode like they should have, who needs Malik Willis? Just throw Quinn Ewers out there, let him ball, let him play, then draft your quarterback next year. Like, there's no reason to bring this guy in if you're going full tank mode. So I feel like they're going to try and win. It's just not going to work out.
Right, and at least it looks good for the fans too, right?
Yeah,
like we're trying to do
on
something.
fan service,
right?
I just to go with the culture aspect of it, and this is not a good culture team, but you think about this: if you don't put somebody there in place and you force yourself to automatically have to draft a quarterback, what are you going to do with the rest of this roster? There's nothing else to build on besides maybe the offensive line that we've already talked about and Jordan Brooks. That's it. I mean, even so, their best bet next year would probably be to trade back, right? Number one, they got to find a dance partner. Number two, after that, you're out of the quarterback ranks. You know what I mean? Like, depending on how far they need to trade back like 3 times. This is a terrible team. They needed to put a body in place that they could potentially build around. Whether they do that or not is completely in the cards. But they took a long time looking at Tua. And yes, they had a couple good years or whatever with Tua, but it fell apart generally pretty quick. And it was like, why did they stick with him? I don't know. That's just me.
It's like we talked, though, Bob. Bad culture teams doing crazy things, and they're more than capable. So it will be interesting. Like, I agree with you. I think you need to try to get everything you can get, try to get some pieces on this team, but we'll see. We know that they're crazy, and they'll do crazy shit. We've seen it in the past, and they're definitely destined for a top 3 pick. There's no doubt in my mind. It's just how high is it going to be, and I think they're the favorites to get the first pick as they sit today, but all right, Logan, let's talk Devon Achane, right? This guy's a fantasy hero, right, I should say. Everyone loves him. I mean, he is a guy that gives 110%. He's a catching, running machine. He's a big play highlight at times. Runs hard for a small guy, too. I was always impressed with that with Achane. But my question is, how long can that go, doing that to your body at his size? And this year, he should see a ton of dump-off opportunities, but I am worried about him holding up health-wise. Do you think that we could see that top 5 finish, and do you think that he makes it through the season?
If he is 100% healthy through a full season, he is in a conversation with Gibbs Bijan for being a number 1 running back, and I think he has the ability, if his health is there, to be there, but I don't know if he stays healthy. He's, like you were saying, he's a power runner, and he's a good dump-off guy, but size, weight, all that stuff, taking so many hits, it's going to build up to you. And we saw it either last year or the year before. I don't remember off the top of my head because I've never been lucky enough to have Achane. So he's got injury history, and you can only take so many hits before you start to break down little by little.
For sure. And look, I would just say this, right? Like, I just think there's so much better value. Like, if you're looking to buy a running back this year, and I know Bob isn't a running back buyer. We talk about that a lot. But, like, if you had the full boat team and you're just looking to add one more running back, I would much rather add a Chase Brown that's going to be cheaper, right? I'd much rather add a veteran like Derrick Henry who's going to come pretty cheap. Saquon Barkley, I think, is going to come cheaper, and he could be a league winner this year based off the fact that Philadelphia has to use him, right? So, like, I'm going to go down to them prices. Like the Achans of the world are going to be up there in the Bijan Jahmyr Gibbs price tag range. I'm never paying that for a running back, especially this one on this team, right? Like, it's wonderful. The guy's amazing. He's super talented. But how long can it last whenever he's running like he is, touching the ball like he does, and he's playing on a team that's as bad as this one is, Bob?
I'm like, there's the potential he gets 2,000 yards and only 500 of it on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he could have 1,500 yards receiving. It would not surprise me. I mean, dump off city, you know what I mean? But I think Logan's not wrong. He's got to completely stay healthy. And this follows the thing with the Jets, right? Like, you paid both of these running backs. So what are you going to do? Run them into the ground? You need them next year when your team's supposedly going to be better. Not now. Like, I don't even understand. And that's another reason why you just don't pay running backs. Like, they probably could have got a good haul for Achane or whatever on the trade market in the offseason, and they foolishly kept him. And, I mean, you got to have somebody to sell jerseys. I know that. But, like, you know, do retro jerseys, man. I don't know. Like, just bring out Manning jerseys Marino jerseys all the time. And just, you know, I don't know. Like, I can't even fathom that this team, man, and the Jets, they're just this conundrum wrapped in enigmas, wrapped in quandaries of I don't understand. It just doesn't make any sense. Never underestimate a bad team to do stupid things.
Yeah, absolutely right, and we talked about that. But let me just say, you talk about retro jerseys, get the Ray Finkel jersey. We've seen that out at the Expo, right? That would be a good one. But let me just say here right now, this is the way I approach it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm in a startup draft and I draft Devon Achane, which I rarely do, okay, you want to take a chance there, fine, right? The guy's talented, whatever. But, like, I'm not paying the mega yacht price for Devon Achane. It's too volatile this year. I understand it's tantalizing and it's a gamble, right? But it's just like a roulette wheel. It could come up red or black, and if it comes up the other color, you're really screwed. And I mean, I'm not paying that, giving up all that capital for a guy and have it blow up in my face like that. So I will say, though, Ollie Gordon, if he's out there on the waivers or wherever, pick him up, right? I'm not saying I'm going to stamp approve, say he's super talented, but another guy that could bring some value if Achane does go down, and he could be a touchdown plotter, right? We've seen guys do that in the past. So just a little depth for insurance. It never helps, or it always helps. So, all right, let's go ahead now and talk about this wide receiver room. We won't spend a lot of time on it. Bob knows I'm a Malik Washington supporter, right? I've always been a fan. I like the film. I think this guy is a solid low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 as far as NFL goes. And I think he could put up high-end wide receiver 3 numbers in this offense this year because, to me, there's no one here that could rival him, Bob. I mean, we're talking about Jalen Tolbert, Tutu Atwell, Chris Bell, a couple of rookies they brought in, right? Like, I just think that Malik is the guy this year as far as the targets. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that really means much because this offense is bad, but I want the number one target getter on any team, and I think I've got Malik Washington a lot, like in the 20th, 18th round, places like that. What's your thoughts on this receiving room? Do you agree with me, or is there another guy you could see coming out of the woodwork?
My thing with Malik Washington is he's 5'8" and 195 pounds, and we're expecting Malik Willis to feed him the ball. Now, I am a bigger Malik Willis supporter than you are, so maybe the Malik connection works out. However, I guess that depending on what the dependency upon Malik Washington, right? If you're talking about a flyer, somebody to throw in for a fill-in, sure. I have probably more faith in him, because he's been with the team, and really Tutu Atwell. I mean, like, was Jalen Tolbert ever really relevant? I do like Chris Bell, but like I said, coming off of a serious injury, needs to rehab. Caleb Douglas was like a completely like, who the hell is Caleb Douglas pick? And obviously Terrence Marshall Jr. being there, like, whatever. I can't even believe that's even possible. I can't believe that Ty didn't know who Theo Weist was, the pride of Oklahoma, and Jalen Reagor. Like, they're just throwing they're doing worse than the Giants when they started signing all them guys because they weren't sure Malik Nabers was going to be healthy. At least, OBJ is a real play, like a player we've seen before. Malik Washington is probably the quote-unquote target hog behind Devon Achane.
Yeah, I think so, right? I really do. It's not just saying I like him. I just think that he's been there, right? He's the veteran, the old head kind of in that room. And I know what you're saying about the 5'8" stuff, Bob, but one thing is, like, Malik Willis doesn't have a huge ADOT, right? He's going to be looking for those slotty, ziggy-zaggy routes underneath. I think that's Malik Washington all day. And let me just say, I'm like you. I'm not going to go out and just say he's going to dominate, be a league winner. No. He's more of a depth fill-in piece, as you said. But look, if you get him in the 18th, 20th round in a startup, I love that, right? If you wanted to risk like the 312 or 311 on him as a contender to add depth, I don't mind that either, right? So I think that would be the most I'd be willing to give up for him in a trade, and I'd just rather add him where I'm getting him in startups, though, because he's just a good value. I talk about it all the time, opportunity and value. It's there. All right, Logan, let's talk real quick this receiving room here in Miami. Is there any difference on opinion? Do you think it's going to be Malik Washington, or do you like one of these other guys?
It's got to be Washington. He's the only one that's even worth a crap. Tutu Atwell's getting to a point where he's way past his glory days. Jalen Tolbert literally is his best use is to receive kickoffs and punts.
Right.
That's Jalen Tolbert in a nutshell. So him being a full-time starting receiver is questionable in my eyes. And they just brought people in for the hell of it, it looks like. I mean, they drafted a bunch of young receivers, which who knows in the 3rd and the 5th, like who knows if there'll be anything worth a crap on this team. And of all the people you bring in Jalen Reagor, the guy who was supposed to be better than Justin Jefferson, or at least drafted ahead of Justin Jefferson.
Big mistake by a lot of people. I'm glad I wasn't one of them.
Yeah, like this receiver room is, if I could take a shit and show it to someone, it would look better than this receiver room.
Absolutely, right? At least there's some corn kernels in there and stuff. It interests people a little bit more, yeah.
Like, you basically would take the shit and put a candle in it, and the candle would be Malik Washington just for presentation.
Yeah.
The rest of it is the pile of shit.
Yeah, it's like that meme with the regular dog shit and the candle dog shit says Miami Dolphins receiving room. Yeah. Absolutely. But no, it is bad. And look, we don't even got to get into the tight ends. Like this is low expectations fantasy football, right? We talked a couple names, Ollie Gordon, Malik Washington. These are just super dart throws, but they are depth, right? They are depth. Maybe they pan out if they're available on the waiver wire, or if you can get them super on the cheap. I'm okay with that. But all right, Bob, the time has come. The Miami Dolphins. You talk about them on the Culture Shock. They're going to be on there a lot, you're saying. Let's hear about overall record, division finish, and, dare I say, playoffs.
This team's not sniffing the playoffs for 3 more years. I got 3-14. I think that them and Arizona are going to be battling to the bottom. And I think if Miami fails to get the first overall pick, then they really screwed up this year.
All right, Bob said it. You got to get the number 1 selection, or it's all for naught. So 3-14, last in the division for Big Culture here, Logan. Where do you see it playing out for Miami in your eyes?
Last place, 4-12, losing the tiebreaker to the Jets to be last place. No playoffs. Obviously, top 5 pick.
4-13 though. Your math.
Yeah. Well, I thought you said 3-13.
3-14. The 17 games dragged me up for a long. It still jacks me up.
Oh yeah, I know that's definitely different. But let me just say, right? 2 wins for the Miami Dolphins. I think they're engineering this, right? Bob said that they have to get that pick. I think that that's their intent fully. I really do. So I'm going to say 2 wins, and I wouldn't be surprised if they both come against the Jets, right? They have a chance. They have a chance to maybe sweep the series there with the Jets. We'll see. But hopefully for Miami's sake, they get that number 1 pick because they really could use it. But all right, let's go ahead now and talk about the Buffalo Bills. Okay, we're going to go from the lower end of the AFC East to actual AFC East now, Bob. The Buffalo Bills have been one of them have-not teams, right? Like, they have been really good. They've been in contention here for a long time, but they haven't finished the deal, struggling in the postseason. But let's talk about this offensive line because, with the head coaching change with Sean McDermott going out, Joe Brady coming in now, the old offensive coordinator, right, coming in as the head coach. Really didn't make much of a change, in my opinion, but what do you think about this offensive line for Buffalo?
I think this is, ironically, this is also the strength of this team. I mean, other than Josh Allen, I do like this offensive line. Deion Dawkins has been a stud, notable, Walter Payton Award winner for, I think, a couple of years, especially for the team. Alec Anderson, Connor McGovern. Alec Anderson's new, and I'll get to that here in a minute. Connor McGovern stays. Osiris Torrance is a good player, and Spencer Brown's a pretty decent right tackle or whatever. They did lose David Edwards, their left guard, which is where Alec Anderson's going to replace, and that's probably going to hurt him a little bit. But I think that they were okay with this Anderson cat just stepping into his place because they've had a little bit of a rotation. They're smart. They got depth. Can you imagine that? A team actually getting depth on the offensive line, like, so in case somebody falls, they can, keep somebody in the play. So, but whatever. It's a pretty good unit.
For sure. And they always seem to put out solid lines, even when the Bills have been bad, right? Like before they got Josh Allen. Their offensive line's never been, chop liver. Like they do build up front pretty well. And I'm like you, Bob. I think you can count on that, right? If you have James Cook, if you have Josh Allen, you don't got to worry too much there. But all right, Logan, let's hear about this Buffalo Bills defense. This is a unit that's, seems like they're high end, middle of the pack lots of times. How do they look this season?
It's not looking amazing, but it's looking pretty typical Bills, I will say. A team that you're going to be semi-scared of, but not all hell breaks loose. They bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who's hurt, and from what Ourlads is showing is DeMar Hamlin's supposed to be playing. So we'll see if that actually happens. They bring in Bradley Chubb, who's a solid piece. Terrell Bernard's still there. Greg Rousseau. They bring in TJ Parker in the draft and some other guys. They bring in Geno Stone, who's a dumpster fire in himself. That's just because I know him from Cincinnati, and he was amazing on the – which if he finds a way to get back to his Baltimore days, he actually won't be bad. But once he hit Cincinnati, he went from peak to dumpster fire. But their defense isn't, I won't say amazing, but it's still typical Bills defense.
About a yellow light matchup, right? That seems how it always is with Buffalo, lots of times from a fantasy aspect. Now, if they do have players go down, I think that they turn more green lightish pretty quick, right? I don't think that they have a lot of depth. So just a defense to keep in mind. If they have injuries, guys, and they're plagued and you're playing them in your fantasy matchups, they don't become as scary because they don't have a lot of depth. So I agree with a lot of what you said, Logan.
Their depth that they have is just so young. Their depth hasn't played much NFL football yet. So, and this guy's over here adding Dorian Williams in every single league that I happen to be in with him. So this is great.
There's always someone. But let me just say, right, Bob, Josh Allen, it all starts there when you talk about the Buffalo Bills. This guy is a, freak of nature. He's always putting up them points, the rushing, the throwing, but we know he's always plowing them touchdowns in. But, we have talked about the rushing quarterback. We don't got to spend a ton of time on it. I think Josh Allen's still going to be good for a year or two. But you mentioned it a lot, Bob. I mean, you're not shy and bashful about, tearing down into a potential Drake May or another young quarterback that you like, right? I know we talked about just the big three that come to my mind, Drake May, Jane Daniels, Caleb Williams, the younger versions, right? Like these guys that you think, Jordan Love, I know you mentioned. So you ain't shy about potentially tearing down into some of those players off of a Josh Allen if the deal's right. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm not afraid. I think that this guy's probably got a year or two of being where he is. And when the three of the four that you named for sure, I think Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jordan Love, I just think that they got just as much potential to end up in the top 5 as Josh Allen does. And in all honesty, I think that their likelihood of falling off is going to be less likely. I think that he's surviving very much on his legs. They just don't manage to bring anybody into the room that helps him out. You know what I mean? And onto the team that really helps him out, like DJ Moore. I've gone on record to say that I think it's a failed experiment. I hope that for Josh Allen it kind of works out. I'd love to see the guy win a Super Bowl because I'm really a fan of his. I'm just not afraid to tear off of him. I just think that at his age and the fact that he's so reliant on scoring with his legs that I would rather just, move along.
Right. And something you got to be wary of, guys. Like, I know there's a lot of listeners out there probably saying, you guys are crazy, trying to get rid of Josh Allen. That's not the intent. Like, if you have a super ultra win now roster and you have Josh Allen, run him till the wheels come off. I'm totally fine with that, right? But, you got to be wary. If you're in the middle of the road or a bad team, we're talking now 30 years old for Josh Allen. It's hard to believe, but, right around this time, and he very, very much reminds me from a running standpoint of Cam Newton. And look how bad it was when Cam Newton really got beat up and lost the luster of his legs, right? Like, it could end quickly. And I've said this many a times. If Josh Allen goes from that standard, always 1 or 2 quarterback finish overall to ending up more of like 11 to 14 or 10 to 14, the values are going to drop. I mean, like a rock, right? It just is. And as Bob said, like they don't really do much other than when they brought in prime Stephon Diggs, right? That was a little magic. I will say they had that going, but outside of that, they really haven't added anything explosive in the weapons department. James Cook's great, but he really don't help Josh Allen's numbers much. He's more of his own guy. They need to add a ultra super talented number 1 wide receiver that he can throw to and continue developing his throwing game more and more. It's just a cautionary tale here, Logan, with Josh Allen, right? No one's saying you have to trade him, but the fact that he's 30 years old, if you have a dynasty roster that's in the middle or rebuilding, I think that you really got to look at this and just say, hey, if I could get, like Bob talked about, a plus with Caleb Williams, Drake May, one of these type of guys, Jordan Love, maybe you make the move because, you don't want to get caught and him lose all this luster with his rushing ability.
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy tearing down. There's still plenty of young guys who have talent and can show it if you can tear down. One guy that I would like to actually look into tearing down to, if you consider it a tear down, is Herbert.
Right.
Like someone with not as much rushing ability. If his line stays healthy, he's a good player. But I will say I think this is the best wide receiver room Josh Allen's had since Diggs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I can agree with that. But it just really comes down to the legs, right? Like the rushing, if the rushing evaporates even half of what it is, right, his numbers are going to take a free fall. And that's where I'm at like that. And like I said, just a cautionary tale, guys. No one's saying you have to move them. But if you're a bad team in your dynasty league or if you're in the middle of the pack, I think you have to move them quicker than you have to just sit on them, right? If that makes sense. The urgency's more on the moving him side than it is just standing pat right at this moment. And you look at it. He's finished quarterback 1 or 2 all these years over and over and over again. Where's the only place to go? The only place to go eventually is to go down, right? Like it's going to happen at some point. He can't go any higher than what he's already given us. So just a word of wisdom, and keep that in the back of your minds if you have Josh Allen on some dynasty rosters. Make sure to know what your roster looks like and how good you feel about it. But, all right, James Cook, right? I'm so proud of this guy, him and Chase Brown. They're like children of mine, right? I'm always cheering for him. I brought him up through the ranks with me. He's a jacket holder as well. Everyone knows I love me some James Cook. Him and Chase Brown on my one dynasty roster that's maybe going to three-peat this year. Got to love that. But every year, Logan, it seems like James Cook just always overperforms ADP, right? He's always someone that's going to put up these top 3 to 5 running back numbers out of nowhere. It seems like the ADP's caught up with him a little bit, though, in startup drafts, right? You have to select him a lot higher up on the board than you were the last couple seasons. What's your confidence level he can do them type of numbers again here in Buffalo, or are you worried that we could see a little bit of a fall off?
He is, like we talked about him and Chase Brown, and they're so similar. I think they're the sneaky running backs, because when you talk about RBs, it always seems like people talk about the top of the top and the bottom of the bottom. No one's ever talking about these solid middle tier guys, the James Cooks, the Chase Browns, those people of Dynasty. So I love James Cook, and I know you do too. And I know Bob's kind of on the same page. If he ever bought running backs, he would enjoy James Cook too. But his ADP starting to slowly catch him, but he's still so good that he's outperforming it.
For sure. I mean, you look at it, right? I mean, the last couple seasons, solid performances. We've seen running back 6 last year and running back 8 the year before that. Bob, look, we know there's some additions here that we'll get into with the Buffalo Bills, but James Cook is the constant, right? If there's one constant on this team behind Josh Allen, it's him. He gets these little dump-offs. He's very, very good in the receiving game. And, I mean, very underrated between the tackles. But the whole Cook family, you go back to Dalvin Cook, very good as well. These guys are just bred to be running backs. I don't know what your thought process is on James Cook. We know he's there in Buffalo, probably there for the duration of the good part of his career now. Do you think that his ADP might have caught up with him a little bit too much this offseason as far as startups go, and you expected another nice year out of Mr. Cook?
The irony is I was looking at his stats, and I was trying to just remember the James Cook story, right? At the beginning of his career, it was like, oh, he never gets in the end zone. Because, I think his second year or whatever, he had 6 total touchdowns. Then he blows up and has 16, right? So, this guy's very touchdown on the ground dependent. And I'm not saying that he can't catch the ball, but the last couple of years, he's caught sub 40 passes or whatever, which is generally not a lot, but he's carrying the load on the ground. So it's to go back to his ADP, I think it is catching up, and it should. I mean, he's well performing over, I think, what most people expected when he came out of college. He was generally thought to be a pass catching running back, and ironically, Buffalo turns him into a tank or whatever. But it's a lot of that's that offensive line. Don't give me, don't hear what I'm not saying. They make holes, and Cook knows how to run. So a lot like his brother. So regardless of that situation, I do like James Cook, and it's tell me you don't listen to our show without telling me you don't listen to our show, Logan, when I said, hey, you could go get Chase Brown or James Cook to be your low-end your running back 1 at the back. I can't remember what show we were talking about, TJ. I think it was the Culture Shock when we were talking, the top 5 running backs that'll outperform ADP. And I was like, yeah, you want to go get cheaper guys that'll be your RB1, go get James Cook or Chase Brown. So legitimately, those are guys that I don't mind buying into. And Logan's not wrong in that aspect. A lot of people kind of quasi are always looking at Bijan and Gibbs and Achane and, to a certain aspect, Breece Hall or whatever. They love that flash, and the guys that are, but James Cook just carries his lunch every day, and Chase Brown just shows up, and as long as there's a Joe starting on that team, he looks like a stud. So I don't have much James Cook. Not that I was ever not a believer, but for the most part, every time I go to shop for him, the guy's got diamond grip on it. So,
and rightly so, right? But yeah, I agree with you, Bob. I think some of these guys deserve a little bit more respect, but so you're basically saying the ADP is caught up, but you would still feel comfortable drafting him at his current ADP right now? Think he could be a good return investment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in this draft that I was looking at, Teixeira drafted him at 302 in our league, that we did, and I think that seems to me like it's very good value. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I would early 3rd round, late 2nd. I would probably take him in the late 2nd if I was a draft running backs early guy.
Right?
But I'm really not.
You think it's going to be good then, Bob? You like that?
Yeah, I think it's fair value for sure.
But, yeah, I mean, look, if he's around the 5-6 range, I think that it's going to be a good return investment. I really do. And look, if it's 8 or 9, it's not going to be far off. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be there. The touchdowns will be there. This offense is going to score a lot of points like it always does. So, loving me some James Cook as always. DJ Moore. Let's go ahead and talk about it, Bob. DJ Moore, brought in from the Chicago Hammond Bears, via trade. How much do you think this helps Josh Allen? Because, I think I remember you and Ty specifically referencing it's an okay move, but it kind of reminds me of the Amari Cooper move. Do you stand by that thought?
Yeah, I think Moore is going to do a lot less than what everybody thinks he's going to, that everybody hopes for. Yes, he's probably the best target on the team. I wasn't impressed with what I seen with him in Chicago. Everybody's like, oh, he did so well or whatever with Cam Newton or whatever in Carolina. I'm like, did he really do much? Because his best year was with Justin Fields. And I mean, everybody seems to forget that year because everybody wants to forget Justin Fields. But it is what it is there. And I mean, I just think that he didn't put a lot on tape to surprise me. Maybe he's rejuvenated himself. But this is not a team that wins with passing the ball all over the yard. I'm not saying that Josh Allen can't have 4,500 yards, right? But it's like it's just so spread out, and you never know who's going to end up with anything. Like, it could be a Khalil Shakir year. They still got Josh Palmer, and they were super excited about getting Josh Palmer last year. What did that guy do? Not a lot. So,
Good point.
and they got Dalton Kincaid or whatever still. And as long as that guy can stay healthy, he's going to be part of the offense. I remember seeing Jackson Halls on the field a lot last year. Like, this team is content running. And I mean, when you're in the snow all the time, TJ, you should be wanting to run the ball. Like, why are you trying to throw the ball all the time? And don't get me wrong, Josh Allen's got a cannon, but, get the guy a real weapon. And, I mean, DJ Moore to me would be awesome as a 2. But he's not a 2 here. They're trying to project him as a 1, and I just don't think that it seems like Amari Cooper again.
So, okay, Bob, this asking just cut out of curiosity. Wide receiver 2 finished. Does DJ Moore do enough to be in the wide receiver 2 hunt this year in fantasy football?
If he does, it's the very back end. I just don't see much more than 22 to 25, in somewhere in that range. And I mean, I think I'll honestly be real surprised if he ends up in the 25 to 30 range. That's just how I feel about DJ Moore. I don't think that they're anxious to throw the ball over the place.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Bob. I mean, you said about the snow, but Buffalo, that's their personality. At least they're smart enough to play to their strengths, right? But for fantasy football, we always have fallen into the trap of Josh Allen, let's get this offense really souped up. But it's going to be Josh Allen and James Cook. That's going to be the bulk of it. And I have to agree with you. I think wide receiver 2 is best case scenario, maybe 18 to 24. That's really what you're hoping for. I just really don't think he's going to get much higher than that. But look, if he does hit them numbers, it's going to be a little bit better than last year, right? And I think people will at least be happy about that if you have him rostered. But that's the absolute ceiling in my eyes. But Logan, we're just going to keep rolling here because we're going to talk about Dalton Kincaid and get your feelings on that tight end from Buffalo, because Wiz still has the mini helmet, which I always give him grief about, right? I always give him a hard time. Do you think finally we see something out of Dalton Kincaid, or is this a dead project in your eyes? This is going to be someone that maybe flashes here and there a season or two, but isn't worth really investing in much?
I think you saying a season or two is a little too much. I think it's going to be a game or two every season. I could see him having flashes 5 games a year, and other than that, it's just, here you go. Here's Kincaid. We might throw him the ball once or twice, but don't expect much.
Well, and two, it's odd they use Dawson Knox in this offense too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they still want him out there in a lot of moments. I mean, with the running of Josh Allen, that's more prevalent. And we talk about the Kyle Pittses, the Sadiqs, the Kincaids. It's very rare that you could get one of them hybrid guys. You have to be like Ben Johnson that knows how to use Colston Loveland. He knew how he wanted to use him. He drafted him. and it seems like it's probably going to work out, right? But, like, you get some of these teams like Buffalo, I really don't think they had much of a plan for Dalton Kincaid, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and blame it all on Kincaid. I do think that the hype might have been a little much. But, like, the fact that he's on a team like Buffalo, as Bob said, you know what their intent is. They want to run the football, right? They're not going to be this high-flying offense that's going to get real creative with all these passing routes and passing schemes. And it just doesn't fit him, man. It just really doesn't, so it's a shame. But we've seen tight ends sometimes, if he somehow get out of Buffalo and go somewhere else, maybe you see a little bit better. But I'm like you, Logan. This is someone I really don't want much to do with. And you know, we talk about values at tight end. I think you could get even better value a little bit later with some of the guys we talked about in the past. So just kind of a wasteful pick in my eyes, right? Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, all right, Bob, here we go. Buffalo Bills, overall record, division finish, playoffs, yes or no? What goes on in Buffalo?
So let me add something before we go on. Josh Allen, since 2020, has regressed in yards and touchdowns every single year. They've gone down every year since 2020. How long has Joe Brady been with the team? Since 2022. Who's the head coach now of this team? Joe Brady. Like, are we expecting an improvement? He hasn't thrown for 4,500 yards since 2020, and it's gone down every year since then. In the last 2 years, he hasn't thrown over 30. I think it was 3,700 yards. Maybe it was 3,700 yards 2 years ago, but 3,600 something last year. So, like, it's gone down every year. Rushing touchdowns go up. Go figure, right? So, back to records. I think this team wins the division this year. And I think that they're in the playoffs. If they don't win the Super Bowl this year, they need to blow the whole thing up, in my opinion. Just to have Josh Allen in that offensive line and James Cook and maybe start all over. I don't know, something.
All right. So what was the record you had them at, Bob?
Oh, I didn't think I even said 14-3.
Ooh. Bob giving Buffalo some love there, but I know the schedule probably is a little bit easier than years past, too. So, Bob's saying Buffalo 14-3 division winners, Logan. Where do you have the Bills?
12-5, second in the division, making the playoffs, and they hit their kryptonite in Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs and are dropped from the playoffs.
All right. Well, we'll see, but winning the division as well. Interesting. So do I. I have them winning the division because it's going to be tough for New England with this schedule, and we'll get to them next, but I'm going to go with 12 wins as well. I think that they'll get that, and I think that'll probably be enough to do it, and we'll see how it goes. They need to break through, Buffalo, right? Like, it's getting to the point of almost now or never here soon for this franchise. You don't want another window closing like we've seen on the Jim Kelly era, right? It can happen quick. But all right, so last but not least, it's Ty and Bob's favorites outside of, some of the people they like to talk about. The New England Patriots. Surprise team last year, Bob. I know you and I last year during the division breakdown spoke highly of this team. We said it was going to happen. It just happened a little quicker than what we thought it would. They end up going the whole way to the Super Bowl last year, and they lose, right? Then we have the offseason scandal with Rossini and Vrabel and all that good stuff, right? The team that don't like distractions, having some of the most ultimate distractions. They trade for A.J. Brown. We'll get into that. But the schedule's tougher, Bob, but let's talk about the offensive line for New England because, it was kind of really criticized after the Super Bowl considering they kind of got dog-walked by that Seattle Seahawks defense.
Yeah, that's the whole tale of the tape, right? They were looked really okay and decent all the way up until they faced a real defense that could put a lot of pressure on Will Campbell that should have not been drafted to play left tackle. I think that he probably ought to kick in, but let's just start there. He's left tackle of this team currently. They bring in Elijah Vera Tucker that if he could ever stay healthy, he's a pretty decent guard. Jared Wilson or whatever is going to move to center after they traded Garrett Bradbury to the Bears, I believe. Mike Owanu is the other guard, and then Morgan Moses solidifies that right side. It's really not a bad offensive line. They're 18th or whatever on this list, but most of that negative ranking, I think, hinges on Will Campbell. they did draft Caleb Lomu in the first round this year, who played left tackle at Utah. So there's going to be some controversy potentially if Lomu or whatever progresses. Moses is not a young guy, but it just we'll see. So I think that this line it's still pretty young, but I just don't know that Will Campbell's the left tackle of the future, and I think that's going to be their biggest issue until they figure out how to change that up.
For sure, that's the big question. And, Bob, to your credit, you were saying it all along. Look, you got to kick him in. He just can't handle it. I think you were saying that even before the Super Bowl. You kind of seen what was going on. Yeah, the draft. Yeah, you were all over. I mean, you've seen what was going on during the season, too. Like, I know you talked about it a lot last year when you caught some of the New England games. But, interesting enough, middle of the pack offensive line, protecting Drake May. Let's go on the defensive side of the ball, Logan. Typical New England Mike Vrabel style, right? There, you got Christian Gonzalez. You got a couple of people there, right, with a little bit more of a high profile, but a lot of, just underrated, under the radar type guys. New England loves to do this, Mike Vrabel type players. What do you think about this Patriots defense? Can they hold up this year? Are they going to be better than expected? About the same? Worse? What do you think?
I think they're going to be about the same, hindering on some improvement / consistency from some guys. They bring in Draymond Jones from Baltimore. They bring in Harold Landry from Tennessee. And then Kevin Byard from Chicago. Those are their three notable starters they brought in. Always you need to see more progression from Christian Gonzalez. Christian Ellis is still solid. Robert Spillane is solid. Christian Barrymore is a solid defensive lineman. And so is Milton Williams. The defense is going to be about where it was last year, if not better, based on progression.
For sure, right? And another one that's probably in that yellowish range for fantasy football. I mean, depending on what could happen with a couple injuries, right? I mean, you got to keep an eye on that. And they might not have the most depth either, considering we talked about Buffalo. So it's going to be interesting. And they're well coached. I mean, you can say what you want about the whole scandal. It is ridiculous, but we know that Vrabel can coach. And we know the staff's good as well, right? This typical New England staff. So expectations, Bob. Look, we talked about the harder schedule. You and Ty, the co-head chairs of the Drake May fan club. We heard about it a lot last year. You guys really, really elevated him early and often, even before he took off, and it paid off for you. But what's your thinking here with Drake May? Because, look, we've talked about this. It's going to be a tougher schedule. We could see a little bit more of a decline just based off of that. And if that happens, are you taking advantage buying low in certain leagues? And if you have them, I'm sure you're holding on and just riding this out until we see a little bit more growth.
Yeah, I'm all over Drake May. He's my favorite QB in the league right now. And I'm not the guy that goes and acquires the rushing guy. I want the guy that sits in the pocket and picks apart the defense. There's a little bit of back and forth discussion here that could be had, right? Does the tougher schedule get negated by having better weapons, right? That's going to be the key here. Because if the weapon, if he even, let's just say, drops to 70% instead of 72%, my God, Caleb Williams wishes he could throw 70%. If the percentage just drops even ever so slightly, and you got A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs catching balls, this is going to be a better offense. I think they may look better and still lose games because it's just going to be tougher schedule. It is what it is there, but I'm not. I like Drake May. I think he knows how to pick apart a defense, and I think if he just wasn't getting pressured like ain't nobody's business, we'd be in a little bit different discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Still a young player too. Like, and what was everything? What's everything we heard about Drake May when he was coming out? Right, like raw. Right, needs time, needs to develop. I mean, he's doing this. Ever so slightly, he keeps going up and up and up. And I don't fully expect I use the phrase, Bob. It's a tough act to follow. I fully expect it to be a little bit tougher. But as you said, maybe these weapons make it a little bit better for them. maybe New England surprises the hell out of us at Drake May, and the growth has continued to make him even better, and we see a strong New England again this year. A lot of people are like, oh, what we're going to do against a tough schedule, we'll see. Like, that's kind of like the dog in a Drake May. That's what we've seen going on. But listen, regardless of what happens, and I know you guys agree with me, if I have him rostered, I'm just waiting it out because I know the talent's there. I mean, you can say what you want, like I said, about Vrabel. The structure's there. The coaching's there. New England's going to have the best of everything to try to help this team win. And I think fully expect that Drake May is going to be one of these top young dynasty options. And I'm going to stick by that. I'm going to stay with that. And if anyone wants to get rid of him cheaply next year, if it does go a little sideways, I'll be trying to get in that back door as always. But Logan, let's go to the running back room for the New England Patriots, right? Because this one is interesting. We heard a lot of smoke last year, people like just being upset about Ramondre Stevenson taking carries away from TreVeyon Henderson, right? It was a problem. Do you think it'll be a problem again this year? If you have TreVeyon Henderson, do you think we could see more of the same, or do you think now's the time that we kind of see this shift and we see kind of a breakout from Henderson?
I think we start to see a shift, but it's not 100% yet. I think he's still got one more year in a shift type role, and then we'll see it more next year. I was on the Henderson train, and I was upset that Ramondre was taking all of his carries. But I feel like Vrabel just likes Ramondre to a certain extent, enough that more than he likes Henderson. So you got to take what you can get, but hold Henderson another year. If it doesn't work out next year, see if he's just going to be a handcuff, see if you can do something with him.
So you're going on the theory of no matter what happens, you're still in belief. You're not going to sell low because you're going to get, if it goes bad, you're going to receive some of them offers in your inbox.
Oh, I know I will, but there is the smallest of sliver in my heart that he can still be there and perform, and it's not that he's not talented or capable, it's that the team is holding him back.
For sure. Okay, Bob, do you agree with that sentiment? Do you think it's going to be another year here, or do you think that maybe that we see the breakout, and as me and Logan just talked, if someone wants to come at me and throw me some offers after another tough year, I'm just going to wait it out, or are you going to take the offer?
No, I want TreVeyon Henderson on my lineups. The thing in a nutshell is there's only so many rooms anymore that are a single running back. We could talk about them, we talked about the top 5 running backs earlier or whatever. And, obviously Breece Hall's kind of by himself or whatever because the rest of the team's kind of garbage, and Achane's by himself because the rest of the team's kind of garbage. But that just lends to getting worn out and getting beat up and not being available at the end of the year. So I'm okay with an RB tandem. I hope that TreVeyon finish. I think that they both can finish as RB, low-end RB2s or whatever, in all honesty. I think Ramondre ends up carrying kind of the load, and I just think TreVeyon's the home run hitter. And I'm okay with that. I like TreVeyon's talent, obviously. I'm going to hold on to TreVeyon. He's one of those guys that I was happy to draft and glad to be attached to.
Yeah, the big play potential's there, and I'm like you guys. You know how I feel about both those Ohio State backs, Junkins and Henderson. I'm not giving up on him either, even if it goes similarly. But listen, it's going to be a big-time prove-it type situation, though, because I fully believe what we seen last year, where you might have seen more 60-40 Ramondre, I think that there's a better chance that could flip, right? Like this year, it could be more 60-40 TreVeyon, because to be honest, as Ty said, against some of these better teams, they might be desperate for more big play potential, right? And who provides that, right? That's TreVeyon Henderson. So could see a little bit more of a sampling size that we hope to see, and we'll see what he can do with it. But yes, look, if it goes a little squirrely again and he doesn't meet expectations and people want to throw them low ball offers at me, I'm just going to shoo them away, right? Because I know they'll be coming and I'll hold out. But A.J. Brown, this is the last player to talk about because he's bringing his books to the sideline in New England here, Bob. He's going to do some little bit of reading there on the sideline in New England. We've seen some of the camp videos, him and Drake May hooking up on some passes. I know Ty's salivating over that. Do you think A.J. Brown could do it again? Do you think, getting out of Philly, do you think this rejuvenates him? Could we see one of these dominant type A.J. Brown years with Drake May, or do you think that it could be a little overhyped?
Well, both. Can it be both? Because what I think is going to really happen is I think A.J. Brown's still he's going to lead this team in targets, but I think Romeo Doubs is going to end up being open a lot because they're going to shade the coverage Brown's way, and I think that Drake May is efficient enough to feed both these guys and keep the offense running. And then again, we know that Vrabel likes to run the ball more, and it's still a cold weather team, TJ, whether we want to like it or not. And, the thing is like Drake May threw 72% with Kayshon Boutte, Matt Collins, Kyle Williams last year. Like, are you serious? The aforementioned, or I don't think we've mentioned him, Douglas. What do they call him?
Pop.
He's Pop Douglas, yeah, that was like I couldn't remember his nickname. So, like, it should be a lot better, and I think that the targets that A.J. Brown will get are going to be better than what they were from Hurts. So, like, legitimately, I think that he's going to get more quality targets, even if he gets less volume. So, I think that we could. I think that we're probably looking at a low end wide receiver one season at least for a year, maybe two. But I also think that this offense should click. And even with tougher competition or whatever, I haven't looked at their schedule in a while, but it is what it is. I just think that this is a pretty good team, and I think that they'll pick and choose their positions. And, you said the last player to talk about, but man, Hunter Henry is a very good tight end on this team. Eli Raridan actually looks really good in camp, and I think that that's another tight end or whatever. There could be two tight ends on the field and two wide receivers. So I think that, we're going to have a decent – it's going to look good in New England, I think, for a while.
Wide receiver one finish out of A.J. Brown, Bob?
Yeah, I think low end.
Okay.
Probably in the 10 to 12 range.
Okay, and if that happens, right, where you're getting them in startups, look, and the reason we talk startups, because I know a lot of people are getting into that right now. It's August, right? So, where you're getting them, I think it's very good value, right? I really do. And what he's capable of. I think the safety net for A.J. Brown for me is from 10 to 17. I think he's going to be there for sure. And who knows? He has the talent that he could meet expectations or better expectations and be even higher than 10. He has that ability, right? We'll just see. It is a tougher schedule. But, Logan, finishing it off, A.J. Brown, in your eyes, look, this was a big, big move. We've seen it coming all offseason. Everything was lining up for this. Do you think A.J. Brown has a wide receiver one finish this year with the Patriots, and do you think he's a good value in startups as well?
I can see him having a wide receiver one finish pretty easily because, realistically, all we're worried about in this wide receiver room is Romeo Doubs, who's always been kind of more of a slant guy. And, sorry, I don't trust anyone who wears a Guardian cap, especially a wide receiver. But I get the health scares and everything that comes with it. But you're not catching death balls from Derek Carr. You're catching decent pass balls by Drake May. So, weird. But I would take A.J. Brown in this wide receiver room 10 times over more than I would have ever enjoyed having him in Philly.
Agreed, because he got what he wanted, right? He's going to be the guy. And he knows that Drake May is going to be looking him up, dialing him up. And to be fair, I know Bob and Todd mentioned this point many a times too. Mike Vrabel's the one that drafted A.J. Brown, right? There is a relationship there. And I think that, this reunited team could do very well of, Mike Vrabel, A.J. Brown, and now with Drake May in the mix. Like I said, it's just a good value. And again, as a contender, right, 27 first, if I know I'm one of the four best teams in my league, whether it be from 9 to 12, if I needed that guy to wide receiver 2, right, say you have a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, if you could add A.J. Brown for that price tag on a contending roster, that is a beautiful, beautiful pairing, I think, right? I really do. So, very solid. But, all right, Bob, hard schedule for the New England Patriots. We know it's going to be tougher. I know you picked the Bills to win the division. How does New England follow up that Super Bowl run?
I'm looking at their schedule, and I'm still sitting here going, man, this doesn't look that daunting to me. Maybe I'm just high on the Patriots, right? They play the Seahawks. Okay, that may be a loss. I mean, yes, they lost to them in the Super Bowl, so okay. And then, of course, they play the Steelers the next week. So that's probably a toss-up game, depending on how you feel about the Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. They could beat Jacksonville. I mean, I'm not saying that Jacksonville's not a good team, but they could beat Jacksonville. And, of course, they play Buffalo twice. But then they got the Raiders, the Jets, the Bears. That's kind of a toss-up game because the Bears' defense really didn't get much better. It's just Caleb Williams versus Drake May. They still got the Dolphins twice. They do play the Packers and the Lions, blah, blah. We're going through the whole schedule, right? The Chargers, Buffalo Bills, Vikings, Chiefs, Jets, Broncos, Miami Dolphins. And, I'm just going to say 10-7, and they end up in the playoffs on a wild card.
All right, so even with the tougher schedule, Bob has enough belief that they get there, right, at 10-7 in the wild card range. Logan, New England Patriots overall record. I know you have Buffalo winning the division as well. Do they make it to the playoffs, and what's the year like for them?
Yeah, I think they make it in. They're going to make it in, and they're going to make a push, I think, again for the Super Bowl this year. I think I had Buffalo at, 12-5 or something. So one less win than Buffalo, we'll say 11, and make the playoffs. I think they can make it all the way to the divisional round. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, definitely have a lot of talent, right? They've been there before a little bit, too. They know what to expect now. I'm going to go exactly the same as what Bob went, right? 10-7, I think they scrape in a wild card scenario, and do not be shocked if they could make a little noise because they have the coaching and the quarterback that could maybe do it. We'll see where it goes from there. But, guys, the division breakdowns are over. What a ride it's been. Appreciate everyone that's been tuning in with us as always. Dynasty DNA Deep Dive is going to be ramping up here, guys. NFL season coming back here tomorrow with the first game, the first preseason game here for the Hall of Fame game. And we'll be with you guys every step of the way during the season. If you are enjoying the content on Spotify, Apple Pod, Stitcher, Amazon, any of the big podcasting platforms and you haven't yet, please follow and 5-star the show. It greatly helps. We so appreciate it. If you guys want to check out Dynasty DNA on YouTube, you won't regret that. Go over, subscribe to Dynasty DNA on YouTube. All kinds of little shorts, different videos coming out over there. Check out Dynasty DNA TikTok, right? We're going to have a lot of little videos on there as well. Dynasty DNA on Facebook. And, of course, follow us on X at Dynasty DNA_. Listen, I know I speak for Logan, Big Culture Bob, when I say football's back, baby. Enjoy it. We'll be with you guys. And we'll see you all on the next episode of the Dynasty DNA Deep Dive.